When I refused to pay off my brother's 25K debt, my own mother drained my bank account overnight. The morning I woke up to a zero balance, I thought it was a glitch. I refreshed the app once, twice, 5 times. Still zero. Not low, not pending, zero. $0. My stomach dropped because the night before I had 42,318.76 in that account. Rent money, emergency fund, years of saving, gone. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, trying to remember if I'd made some insane transfer in my sleep. I hadn't. I checked recent transactions. One line, ACH transfer authorized. Amount, $42,000. Authorized? By who? I felt this cold, slow realization creeping in. There were only 2 people who had ever had access to my account, me and my mother. I grabbed my phone and called her immediately. She picked up on the 3rd ring. "Hey, honey." Her voice was calm. Too calm. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "did you touch my bank account?" Silence. Not confusion, not surprise. Silence. Then, yes. Just like that. No hesitation, no apology. My chest tightened. "You took $42,000? You moved it," she corrected. "Where is it?" Another pause. Then she said the one sentence that made everything click. "Your brother needed help." I closed my eyes. Of course he did. "Mom," I said, slowly, "tell me you didn't just pay off Jason's debt with my money." "He was in trouble," she said defensively. "That's not an answer. He owes $25,000. The rest is for his expenses until he gets back on his feet." I laughed. Actually laughed, because this had to be a joke. "You drained my entire account to fix Jason's mess? He's your brother, and I'm your daughter. He needed it more." That sentence hit harder than the money. I got out of bed, pacing now. "No," I said, "he didn't need it more. He wanted it more. Big difference. You don't understand." "No, you don't understand," I cut in. "I said no. I told you both I wasn't paying his debt." That conversation had happened 2 nights ago. Jason, sitting on the couch, looking stressed but not desperate. Mom beside him, already on his side. "It's just 25K, she had said. "Then you pay it," I replied. "I can't afford that." "Exactly." Jason had rolled his eyes. "You make good money. Why are you acting broke?" "Because I don't fund bad decisions." He had taken out loans, maxed credit cards, business ideas that never turned into anything, and somehow I was the backup plan. Except this time, I said no, and apparently that didn't matter. "Mom," I said now, my voice shaking, "you had no right. I'm your mother. That doesn't give you access to my money. You added me to the account years ago for emergencies. This is an emergency." "No," I said, "this is theft." She went quiet. Then her tone hardened. "Don't be dramatic." "Dramatic?" I repeated. "You emptied my bank account overnight. I'll pay you back." "With what?" Silence. "Exactly." "Mom," I said, calmer now, "I need that money back today. I can't just pull it back. It's already handled." Handled, like my entire financial life was a small inconvenience. I stopped pacing because something inside me had just shifted. I asked her, "Do you really think this is okay?" "I think family takes care of family." I nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see me. "Okay. Good," she said, relieved. "I knew you'd understand." I hung up, not because I understood, but because I finally saw the situation clearly. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about boundaries, and mine had just been crossed in the worst way possible. I opened my banking app again, stared at the empty balance. Then I did something my mother definitely wasn't expecting. I smiled, because she thought this was over, that I'd just accept it, move on, maybe rebuild quietly. She had no idea that she had just made the most expensive mistake of her life, because the next call I made wasn't to my mother, it was to my bank's fraud department. I didn't hesitate. I tapped the number for my bank and hit call. "Fraud department, how can I help you?" "Hi," I said, calm and clear. "I need to report an unauthorized transfer from my account. Can you confirm the amount?" $42,000. There was a pause. Then the tone changed. "Okay, I'm going to ask you a few questions." "Sure. Did you authorize this transaction?" "No." "Does anyone else have access to your account?" I took a breath. "Yes, my mother, but she did not have permission to move that money." "Understood." The word understood felt powerful, like someone was finally taking this seriously. "We're going to open an investigation," the agent said. "In the meantime, we'll freeze the receiving account if possible." "Good. Can you reverse it?" I asked. "If it qualifies as unauthorized, yes, but we'll need to verify details." "I'll provide whatever you need." I hung up feeling something I hadn't felt since waking up. Control. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Mom. I let it ring twice before answering. "What did you do?" she snapped. That was fast. "I called my bank." "You reported me?" "I reported an unauthorized transfer." "I told you I took it." "Yes," I said calmly, "and I told you you didn't have permission." Her voice dropped. "You're making this a legal issue? You already did that. You're overreacting. $42,000 says otherwise." She exhaled sharply. "You're really going to do this to your own family?" I laughed. "You mean like you did to me?" Silence. Then, "Jason is freaking out." "Good. He already used some of the money." "That's not my problem." "It is your problem if the bank reverses it. Then maybe he shouldn't have spent stolen money." She didn't like that word. "Stop calling it that." "What would you call it?" "Helping." I shook my head. "No, helping is when I choose to give. This was you taking." Her tone turned cold. "If you do this, don't expect things to go back to normal." I almost smiled. "They already won't." Another pause. Then she said something that actually surprised me. "You're choosing money over your family." I didn't even hesitate. "No, I'm choosing respect." Click. I hung up. That evening, Jason called. Of course he did. I answered. "You seriously reported Mom?" he said immediately. "Yes. What is wrong with you?" I leaned back on my couch. "What's wrong with you? You let her take my money." "I didn't let her." "Did you stop her?" Silence. "Exactly." "I needed help," he said finally. And I said no. "You have money." "I had money." He groaned. "It's just $25K. Then why couldn't you pay it?" "That's not the point." "That is literally the point." He got louder. "You're being selfish." I laughed again. That word. Every time someone refuses to fund bad decisions, they become selfish. "Let me ask you something," he said. "If I took $42,000 from your account without asking, what would you do?" "That's different." "How?" "You're my sister, and you're my brother. See how that works?" He went quiet, then tried a different angle. "Look, Mom said she'd pay you back." "With what income?" "She'll figure it out." "No, she won't, because she never had to before." "What does that mean?" "It means this is the first time someone said no and meant it." He exhaled hard. "You're really doing this?" "Yes. And if the bank reverses it, then I get my money back. And Mom?" I paused, because that question actually mattered. "She'll deal with the consequences of her actions." He scoffed. "You're unbelievable." "No," I said quietly. "I'm just done being the safety net." I hung up. The next morning, I got an email from my bank. Subject, fraud investigation update. My heart started racing as I opened it. "We have temporarily frozen the receiving account." Good. And flagged the transaction as potentially unauthorized. Better. Pending final verification and recovery process. I exhaled slowly. This was actually happening. But then I saw one more line, one that made my stomach drop all over again. Please note, if funds have already been withdrawn or spent, full recovery may not be possible. I stared at the screen because Jason had already admitted something. He used some of the money, And if even part of it was gone, this wasn't just a family issue anymore. It was about to turn into something much bigger. Because later that day, my bank called back and asked if I was willing to press charges. I stared at my phone after the bank agent said it. Are you willing to press charges if necessary? Not if you want your money back, not just a formality. Press charges against my own mother. I took a slow breath. What happens if I say yes? I asked. It strengthens the fraud claim, the agent said, especially if funds were used without authorization. It also allows law enforcement involvement if recovery becomes complicated. Complicated. That was one way to put it. And if I say no? We'll still attempt recovery, she said, but your case may be weaker if the other party disputes authorization. I closed my eyes for a second. This wasn't just financial anymore. This was a line. Once I crossed it, there was no going back. I need a few hours, I said. Of course. I didn't call my mom. I didn't call Jason. For the first time in years, I sat in silence and thought about me, about every time I had covered for Jason, every small loan that was never repaid, every time my mom said, he just needs help, every time I was expected to fix things. And then I looked at my phone again. 0 balance. That answered the question for me. 2 hours later, I called the bank back. I'm willing to proceed, I said. Understood. We'll continue with full investigation protocols. That was it. Simple. Final. That evening, my phone exploded. Missed calls, texts, voicemails, Mom, Jason, even my aunt. I ignored all of them until one message caught my attention. From Mom. They froze my account. What did you do? I replied with one line. I reported what happened. Her response came instantly. You've gone too far. I stared at that message, then typed back, No, you did. The next day, Jason showed up at my apartment, unannounced, pounding on the door. Open up. I opened it, calm. What do you want? You need to fix this, he said immediately. Fix what? Mom's account is locked. She can't access anything. I leaned against the doorframe. Sounds familiar. This isn't funny. It wasn't funny when I woke up to 0 either. He ran a hand through his hair. Look, I messed up, okay? But you didn't have to go this far. I didn't go anywhere, I said. I stayed exactly where I said I would. You're ruining her. No, I said quietly. Her decisions are doing that. He stared at me, then lowered his voice. What if she gets in real trouble? I held his gaze. Then maybe she'll finally understand consequences. That hit him, because neither of them had ever really faced any, until now. 3 days later, the bank called again. We've recovered a portion of the funds, the agent said. How much? 31,000. I exhaled. Relief mixed with anger. And the rest? Already withdrawn and spent. Of course it was. Next steps? I asked. We're proceeding with the claim. Law enforcement may follow up regarding the unrecovered amount. I nodded slowly. Understood. A week later, I got another message from Mom. No anger this time, no blame, just one line. I didn't think you'd actually do it. I stared at it for a long time, then replied, I didn't think you'd take everything. No response. The truth is, this was never about 25,000 or 42,000. It was about something way bigger. Respect, boundaries, and what happens when people think they can take from you without consequences. Because the moment you finally say no, really say no, everything changes. If your own family crossed a line like this, would you protect the relationship or protect yourself? Tell me in the comments what you would do. And if you want more real stories about money, family, and the moments when everything flips overnight, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.